I would like to add that there's a saying, false pride is dangerous. By teaching history the way it should be taught, especially ancient history, he generates a sense of pride which is not grounded in some myths, it's grounded in facts, facts which are irrefutable. And that is where he makes his biggest impact, making us genuinely proud of our heritage and legacy. Now, I would like to invite Professor Danino himself, on behalf of the IIT Gandhinagar community, to share a couple of thoughts with us.
Friends, I'm a little overwhelmed, of course, by all these testimonies. I did not expect this at all. And first of all, I have to confess that I had absolutely no clue and no thought about any kind of award. I received a phone call on the 25th afternoon, about 3 p.m., from the Ministry of Home Affairs, saying that you have been given the Padma Shri Award. And for a few seconds, I thought it was a hoax. Somebody was playing a joke on me. This was my feeling, because these days you never know, you know. It does happen. And for a few seconds, I didn't really believe. And then, of course, the language was really the language of an undersecretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs. So it did sound genuine enough. So my next feeling was one of embarrassment. You know, I felt really awkward, and I was quite sure that I didn't really deserve this award. And when I got one of the first phone calls from my friends, many friends called, of course, this was from a great friend in Coimbatore, who got a Padma Shri Award himself a few years ago because of his work on Ayurveda. And I told him, you know, I said, Krishna Kamarji, you know very well that I don't deserve this. So he asked me, are you on the panel of judges? And then I had to, you know, swallow what I had said and, well, accept this great honor. And yes, I felt that this honor will actually put a pressure on me to really feel that I deserve it and therefore to work much more. You noticed perhaps that there's a new category in the Padma Shri Award. Did anyone notice? First of all, the Bollywood actors were out for this year, and the new category is that of unsung heroes, right? I thought that was a brilliant departure, and very humble people who have been working silently on the ground here and there. So I was considering, can I, you know, put myself in that, but then no, I am not a hero. Maybe my only claim to heroism is that I've been living in India for 40 years. That's about the only claim I can have. And in fact, well, that is heroic in some ways, you might say. Then, you see, this undersecretary asked me, he said, are you French? I said, no, I was French, but I am Indian citizen. I was naturalized 13 years ago. And then I said, but under which category have you put me? And he said, literature and education. Now, literature was not a proper term because I have not contributed to Indian literature. I have contributed to non-fiction, not to fiction. And, but education, I did do a little bit of work even before my contribution to IIT Gandhinagar in various fields, including at the school education level, when I conducted a survey on Indian culture in education for NCERT way back in 2005, and where I documented how much or how little young Indian school children know about Indian culture and would want to know. And that survey was actually quite revealing, because for the first time it brought home with facts and figures the fact that Indian students are absolutely not exposed to Indian culture. So this was the great paradox which I kept addressing and fighting in various forums, in various ways, through articles and through lectures and occasional writings. And in fact, it remains a paradox to me, and it is something which I have been addressing here also at IIT Gandhinagar, which is, why is it that if there is this culture that we are so proud of, we do not bring it home to the student? It may be through a general exposure, or it may be even here, for example, in an IIT, and this is what brought me to this course on Indian knowledge systems, among others. It may be also through the field of the student. You see, if we have a student learning medicine, or learning psychology, or learning philosophy, or learning even technical fields, including mathematics, of course, or metallurgy, why is it that the student cannot know what was achieved in this country in that particular field? It's not about, puffing out our chest. It's not about hollow pride. It's about simply knowing. If I used to give this example of a Bangalore University Department of Mathematics, which last year started a course on the history of mathematics. Now, that is unusual. Usually, Department of Mathematics in India or in any discipline do not bother about the historical background of their discipline. So that was an interesting attempt. But when we saw the syllabus of that course, it's at the master's level. There was, first of all, about all the modern European mathematicians, so Euler and Gauss and so on and so forth, which of course you would have to study very much. And then it went to the ancient period, and in the ancient period, there was a little bit on Mesopotamian mathematics and Greek mathematics, and that was all. Indian mathematics? Absolutely not. It is just non-existent. Can you imagine if you transport yourself to Greece and you have a course on history of mathematics in Greece, and the professor doesn't even mention Greek mathematics? Is it possible? Of course it's not possible. But in India it's possible. So this is the kind of paradox. I could give many more examples, but I don't want to detain you too much, that concern me. And I don't know whether the Padma Shri is in any way a response to that. But how do we are caught in India between several attitudes which are often very extreme. There is an attitude of denial that we are a very dark society. We have so many black spots, and it is true in a certain way, but then it is true of every human society, which is what we forget. And then you have the other extreme, which paints a completely glorious picture of ancient India as if it was a perfect place, a perfect society with perfect knowledge, which of course is equally untrue. So somewhere in between, how do you create a genuine scholarship and a genuine awareness, especially in young Indians, simply so that they get the feeling of this sense of belonging to a civilization? Because in fact, this is what I want to come to. I haven't looked at India as a modern nation. It is a modern nation, but a modern nation is a European definition. That means borders, it means a constitution, it means a democratic structure, and so on. And this is, what Europe evolved after the 17th, 18th centuries. That's fine. It does exist. It can't be helped. But my approach to India has not been that. It has been an approach to a civilization, as you had the ancient Egyptian or ancient Greek civilization. But then there is a difference, that this one has survived, the others have passed. So why is it that this civilization has somehow continued? Continued to the point that Newsweek magazine, a couple of years ago, published an article whose title, of course, slightly sensational, but nevertheless, the title of that article was, in the US, Newsweek, was, "We are all Hindus today." We are all Hindus today. So, of course, then it was an article about the penetration of Indian ideas, penetration of practices of yoga, meditation, and so on and so forth. And how deeply impacted US culture, society has been. And of course, we are impacted in exchange. That is unavoidable. So these are the questions that have concerned me, and why is it that this civilization managed to survive when others disappeared? I'm not here for a lecture on these topics. I'm simply giving you the questions, not the answers, that motivated me and that interested me. So this is very briefly my journey. My journey, in fact, started at the age of 15, when somebody for the first time put into my hands a book that was distantly related to Indian culture and spirituality. It was not a very good book, but sometimes you need bad books to get into something. And I was very dissatisfied with life in France, in Europe, even though, you know, France is a good country with a good culture and many good things, but I was wondering, what is the meaning of all this? You know, why can't they give you a meaning to life? And I didn't find it. And forgive me, Jason, but I couldn't find anything in Western philosophy. Maybe I didn't have the right teachers. Maybe you could teach me, you know, Western philosophy, and I would be able to appreciate it today. So I couldn't find anything, and of course the religions, they are just too old. And so I started reading this stuff, and I found something was very, very captivating. By the age of 17, I had made my decision that I would be living in India. So I couldn't move to India immediately. Certain circumstances had to be taken care of, and I had to wait till the ripe old age of 21 till I could finally realize my dream. So in the process, by the way, I'm a very bad role model for our students, because, you know, professors are supposed to be good role models, but I did everything that a good student shouldn't do. I threw out, you know, possibly good career. I was in the top engineering school in electricity and electronics in France, and I left my family, and I left my country, and I was absolutely unconcerned about how I would live, what would be my livelihood, what could be my possible sources of income. None of this mattered at all. So this is exactly, you know, what good students are supposed not to do. And therefore, I cannot be a role model, but I can give you that one question, which has stayed with me through these 40 years in India, and which is, what is the... See, the other day, Ramachandra Guha, he was in Calcutta 3 days ago. I just read the article, and he's a good modern historian, as you might know, and he gave a lecture in Calcutta on the mystery of India. That is to say, his question was, how is it possible that India has survived as a nation? And he said, this is a mystery. And then he went on about, you know, our journey through democracy, this, that, whatever report I have seen in the press. I have not attended the lecture, of course. And he said it's a mystery because everybody by the 1960s and 70s predicted that India would break up as a nation. No? And remember Nixon declaring India is ungovernable. You know, this was, and in some ways it is true. In some ways it is true. In some ways India is ungovernable. It is a fact. It is a fact that there is something totally chaotic, totally irrational, and which you can't grasp. In fact, there was a British economist who said a few years ago, I forget her name, Joan Robinson or something, and she said, whatever you may rightly say about India, you might equally say the opposite. The opposite will equally be true. You know, these are the kind of disconcerting feelings that Westerners have when they approach India. So Ramachandra Guha said, it's a mystery. You know, why is India still one country? But if you study the roots of the culture, the roots of the civilization, then it's not a mystery anymore. Then you understand that there are certain hidden strengths about this place, and this is what I try very clumsily and imperfectly to communicate to students or, you know, to readers and so on. So this has been very briefly my journey, and then, you know, I was also never concerned with institutions. I was trying to avoid all institutions always and keep fiercely my independence. But somehow I got into the academic field, and I still remember with great pleasure, almost emotion, my first meeting with our director, Professor Sudhir Jain. And you see, what he told me, he might have forgotten, but what he told me was that, see, we here are going to produce engineers by default. I want to know what more we can do. What more we can do to produce students whose minds have been opened, you know, who are exposed to something of India and who understand the world and so on. And this was really his first question. And his second question was, tell me what endangered disciplines, he used the word endangered. Tell me what endangered disciplines we can help. And then, you know, we started talking about archaeology and a few more. So it has been a great privilege of mine, and I've been very proud of being part of this IIT Gandhinagar family. And I've done what little I could. I could have perhaps done more, but whatever I have contributed, I'm very, very grateful for that. Very grateful for all the tributes we've heard, deserved or not, and for those who took the trouble of coming on video today. Grateful to all of you, grateful to Sudhir, grateful to my oldest student, Surabhi, and thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.